فَلْيَصْمُتْ. Let him say good or stay silent. I'm not sure, it may be neutral, it's just a word, it's this or that. All of this is not acceptable because the Prophet gave us two alternatives. You either know it's good or stay silent. That's it. That's the first quality, or the first virtue in this first hadith. The second virtue is من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. Part of someone being a good Muslim is his leaving alone that which does not concern him. Imagine a society where people do not intervene in that which does not concern them. People do not worry about that which does not concern them. They completely shun that which does not concern them. Third is the wasiyah of the Prophet ﷺ, do not become angry. Don't be angry. Don't become angry. And certainly that means, and if you have to be angry, then you have to restrain yourself. Because anger is different phases. The last one is, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you will have complete faith until he loves for his brother that which he loves for himself. In some reports, حتى يحب للناس, until he loves for the people that which he loves for himself. That which he loves for himself. So those four qualities, Imam ibn Abi Zayd, one of the greatest Maliki scholars, said that they summarized all the noble virtues. Basically, the virtues, the etiquettes of social interaction. Etiquettes of social interaction. If you want to know, 4 hadith only that will guide you in your social interactions, learn those 4. One of you will not have faith until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. That's number 4. La taghdab, don't be angry. That's number 3. Number 2, it's part of someone being a good Muslim is to leave alone that which does not concern him. And number 1, he who believes in Allah on the final day, let him speak good or stay silent. 4 hadith only. Today, inshallah, we'll go over hadith number 3 out of this list, hadith number 2 out of this list, which is hadith number 12 out of Imam An-Nawawi's 40 hadith, which are actually 42. But hadith number 12, as we said, من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. Well, min husni is part of the beauty or perfection. Islam al-mar, of the Islam of someone, is his leaving alone that which does not concern him. So the Prophet ﷺ said, min husni Islam al-mar. There is another hadith that talks about husn and hasan as they pertain to the meaning of husn, or beauty, or perfection, as it pertains to Islam. Which hadith talks about husn as it pertains to Islam? Hadith Jibreel, which is hadith number 2. Hadith Jibreel, in which the Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel asked him about al-ihsan. Al-ihsan and husn, they come from the same root, right? Yeah. This is like that. It's about beauty and perfection. Because beauty is the sign of perfection. Usually you worry about beautification after you have done everything. After you have built established the foundation, built the building, and then, installed the windows and decoration, beautification comes at the end. That is the sign of perfection. That's the cream on top of a cake or whatever. So it is a sign of perfection. Beauty is a sign of perfection because it comes as a last stage, last phase. Certainly, if you worry about beautification before you establish the foundation, that creation will be deformed, distorted, lopsided, defective, completely defective. But people should start from the foundation first. So you're leaving alone that which does not concern you is part of the perfection of your deen, part of the perfection of your deen. But when the Prophet ﷺ was asked about Ihsan by Jibreel, Jibreel said to the Prophet ﷺ, tell me about Ihsan. What did the Prophet ﷺ say to him? أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. To worship Allah as if you see Him. And if you don't see Him, He sees you. If you don't see Him, He sees you. So basically, this hadith that we're talking about is about part of husn, part of the beauty. But it does not address the source of that beauty. Hadith Jibreel addresses the source of that beauty, the source of that perfection of someone's iman. You're not going to be able to leave alone that which does not concern you until you go back and ponder over Hadith Jibreel and act upon Hadith Jibreel, because it is a manifestation. And that is the problem. Sometimes, the good understanding of the deen is to know the difference between the disease and the symptom, between the root and the branch, between al-asl wal-fara, between al-marad wal-arad. It is to know the difference between the essence and the manifestations of that essence. So the essence of this matter of the beauty and the perfection of one's deen is to worship Allah as if he sees Him. And if he does not see Him, then he knows that Allah does see him. And that, the blossoms of that will be so many of them, as the Prophet ﷺ said, min husn, of the perfection and beauty is this one, tarkuhu ma la ya'ni. His leaving alone that which does not concern him. It is one of the blossoms of al-ihsan, as mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ in Hadith Jibreel, which is أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. To worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you don't see Him, He sees you. So now the idea here is, why are we saying this? We're saying this because unless we know the root cause of our problems, and the root cause or the root remedy of those problems, we will not be able to, arrive at the right solutions, the right, endings. So you will say to yourself, I want to beautify my iman, I want to perfect my Islam. I should leave alone that which does not concern me. And you try to practice this. And you basically, for a few days, you're talking much less than before. And you're trying to mind your business. You're trying to remind yourself, well, it's none of their business. Why should I worry about this? Why should I pay attention to this? It's none of my business. So you're looking less at people and at things and at events and around you and so on, trying to focus and trying to stay out of trouble by avoiding that which does not concern you. But then you relapse. The cause of recidivism, which is relapse, going back to square one, is you have not addressed the root cause of your problems. And why do we not address the root cause of our problem? Because it's very uncomfortable to address it. Because it takes a lot of changes in our lives. It takes a lot of sacrifices. Can you imagine really worshiping Allah as if you see Him? And if you don't see Him, then you know that He sees you? Can you imagine doing this for a few days, weeks, months. It's something so beautiful, and many people did it. But are we able to do it? Do we want to do it? Do we really want to do it? Because do you know what that means? You know, that you will be in shape 24/7. You're being watched by Allah 24/7. You're being in shape 24/7. And not only that, your thoughts have to be in shape as well, 24/7. So then we run from addressing the root cause, and then we look at, the basically painkillers, fever reducers, analgesics, to just try to still basically feel good about yourself, or at least feel that I'm not too lost. So you try to do one thing here and one thing there, and a little bit of charity here and a little bit of that there, but you're still not master the courage to address the root cause and to attack it head on. Do I worship Allah as if I see Him? Why are we saying this? Not to cause despair, not to cause, to give you mental anguish, but to know why the Mu'awwidha does not always work with us. So that when we hear about how the Mu'awwidha impacted the Sahaba alayhim and the righteous generations, and we hear about their examples and their role model, and we get astounded, amazed, surprised, shocked, bewildered, confused. How could this happen? How could there be people like this? So what's wrong with me? Well, I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I'm praying. I'm trying to do my best. Because we need to really confront the reality. The reality is they address the root cause with complete courage and complete confidence. Confidence that what Allah has for them is better than what they plan for themselves. Allah's plans for them are better than their plans for themselves. And this is submission, surrender. And this is Islam, surrender. So it is basically, we need to surrender. Have we surrendered, completely surrendered to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I hope that we get there. Partially we have surrendered. But to completely surrender to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it takes a lot more courage and a lot more, transparency on our part. So من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. It is part of his being a good Muslim. But where is the root? كأنك تراه. That is al-ihsan. Not min al-ihsan. 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 Not min al-ihsan. Not part of al-ihsan. Al-ihsan is one thing, to worship Allah as if you see Him. And if you can do this, that's it, you're done. Because all of the rest will fall in place automatically. Will you be concerned about that which does not concern you? If you worship Allah as if you see Him? How could you? Because to be concerned about that which does not concern you, and we will talk about what is that does not concern you or should not concern you. But to worship Allah as if you see Him, al-muraqabah, which is watchfulness. What is the definition of al-muraqabah? The first station of muraqabah is دوام السير إلى الله بين تعظيم مذكر ومداناة حاملة وسرور باعث, as some of the scholars said. دوام السير إلى الله, it is to continue the walk to Allah. Continuing the walk to Allah. دوام السير إلى الله بين تعظيم مذكر, with feelings of distracting glorification, وسرور باعث, and rejuvenating, reviving joy. وَمُدَانَاتٍ حَامِلَةٍ, and enticing nearness, closeness. Basically, distracting glorification, ta'zeem. Ta'zeem man? Ta'zeem Allah. Your glorification of Allah is completely distracting. What does it mean, مذهل? من الذهول. So, الذهول أن تذهل عما سوى الله is basically to be completely distracted. You know, when people say هذا ذاهل, ذهب, he's scattered-minded, meaning that he can't really pay attention to anything except his final destination. So he is in zuhud. Zuhud is not always a good thing, a word, but here in this sense, it is being distracted from the distractions. Being distracted from the distractions, because anything but the pleasure of Allah, anything aside from the pleasure of Allah is considered a distraction, right? Anything that will not lead to the pleasure of Allah is considered a distraction. So to be distracted from the distraction, what are you distracted by? At-ta'zeem, the glorification of Allah. So if you behold Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your perception, كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى, as if you see Him, how could you not be distracted from the distractions? Your glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will distract you from all the distractions. In other words, you will never pay attention to that which does not concern you. You never pay attention to that which does not concern you because you are distracted from all the distractions. So, من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. A manifestation of كأنك ترى. This is a manifestation of كأنك ترى. كأنك ترى brings about this glorification, distracting glorification. And at the same time, the self-reckoning and the watchfulness, al-muraqaba wal-muhasaba, muhasaba, self-reckoning. Because if you worship Allah as if you see Him, you will have, a constant overseer, of your actions, built in. From within, you have sensors all the time that are guiding you. Don't do this, do that, don't do this, do that. So when Imam Ahmad was at the deathbed and he refused to say because he didn't know where it would end up, where would it wind up being in his scale of good deeds or not. So he's unsure. So if it's not good, I don't say it. If I'm not sure, I don't do it. So he refrained from saying out of pain because he didn't know where it would end up being. That is the self-reckoning, the inner sensors. So من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه is only but a manifestation of كأنك ترى. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said من حسن Islam, that is part of someone being a good Muslim, to leave alone that which is not concerning. So what should concern us? How do we know what concerns us? Well, basically, what concerns you is based on what you're here for. And where are you going? Like, if you are embarking on a trip to Niagara Falls in the winter, what would concern you?
What?
You'll be, if you're going to the beach, you'll make sure that you'll take your tools and your swimsuit You'll just, well, whatever it is that your goggles, things like that. If you're going to Niagara Falls in the winter, there's certain gear appropriate for this trip. And if you're going to somewhere else, there will be a different preparation. There's a different preparation for every trip. The trip of our life, the final destination, is your final encounter, final encounter with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before you're decreed to al-Jannah or al-Nar. That meeting before you are ordered to al-Jannah or al-Nar should be the ultimate goal, the final destination. Based on your determination of the final destination of the trip, then you will decide, the right gear, right preparation for this trip. So that which concerns you is basically anything that will result in the pleasure of Allah or that will enable you to please Allah. Anything that will result in the pleasure of Allah or that will enable you to please Allah. Anything outside of that should not concern you. Anything outside of that should not concern you. That's why our Quraysh predecessors used to say, لا ينبغي للرجل العاقل أن يرى إلا ساعيا في تحصيل حسنة لمعاده أو درهم لمعاشه. لا ينبغي للرجل العاقل. It is not appropriate for a sane man أن يرى إلا ساعيا, except to be seen except seeking, pursuing, ساعيا في تحصيل حسنة لمعاده, pursuing a hasana for his return, أو درهم لمعاشه, or dirham, money, for his current life, for his worldly life, for his ma'aish. One is basically to earn him the pleasure of Allah, and one is to enable him to earn the pleasure of Allah. One is to earn the pleasure of Allah, al-hasana, lima'adihi, that is to earn the pleasure of Allah. And the dirham lima'ashihi is to enable him to earn the pleasure of Allah, the money that he will earn for his living. It will enable him to earn the pleasure of Allah. Outside from this, now if that dirham is not enabling me to earn the pleasure of Allah, then it should be also of that which does not concern me. If it has taken me away, it should not be of that which concerns me. We're talking about the dirham, the money that will enable me to earn the pleasure of Allah, and the hasana that will earn me the pleasure of Allah. So these are the things that should concern us. Now, you could say, so what about soccer? What about soccer, basketball? Concern, does not concern. Tennis table.
With the right attention.
Or table tennis, I'm sorry.
Shouldn't distract.
Because one of the first things that I asked about yesterday when I came is if there is like a table, like a table for pool and ping pong and stuff. These are attractions. They are distractions for some people, but could be attractions for some. Yeah. If you're not on the path, we set those up on the path to attract the people that are. But even if you are on the path, to basically recoup from hard work, you do need, some sort of pleasure. Some halal pleasure to recoup from your hard work and rejuvenate and revive your spirit and so on. You do need this every once in a while. But it is, what is in sight here is the pleasure of Allah. So I am doing all of this to enable me to earn the pleasure of Allah, such as what Abu Darda said, إِنِّي لَأَسْتَعِينُ عَلَى الْحَقِّ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْبَاطِلِ, that I take assistance, from batil, that which is void, invalid. إِنِّي لَأَسْتَعِينُ عَلَى الْحَقِّ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْبَاطِلِ, that I seek assistance or help by doing batil, which is void, null, invalid, on haqq, or which is, acts of goodness or righteousness. What did he mean here? He meant things like soccer and basketball. He meant playing, with your horse, racing with your wife, doing things of that nature, having some jovial discussion with friends, things of that nature that will revive your spirit, that will give you, re-energize you, revive your spirit, and so on. But you're doing this within a certain measure that will basically enable you to carry on your journey. They could become distractions. If you're doing this too often or too much, or it is, keeping you from the prayer, keeping you from, your business, keeping you from your work, then they are distractions. But all of this is basically to support you, support your nafs on to this journey, or on this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the things that should concern you. Things that directly earn you the pleasure of Allah, and things that you use for support, so that you may continue to earn the pleasure of Allah. So, things that you use for support, moral support, spiritual support, psychological support, that you will use to carry on the journey towards the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are the things that should concern you. So here the Prophet ﷺ said, "Min husni Islam al-mar tarkuhu ma la ya'ni." It's part of someone being a good Muslim to leave alone, tarkuhu is leaving alone, ma la ya'ni, that which does not concern him. He said tarkuhu, he did not say sukutuhu amma la ya'ni. He did not say his silence concerning that which does not concern him. Is there a difference? Oh, absolutely, there is a great difference. Because for the beginner, you need to at least stay silent. Because that is how the exterior impacts the interior. The exterior has a great impact on the interior. Just like the interior impacts the exterior impacts the interior. Certainly the interior has a greater effect and impact. But the exterior does impact the interior. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. Being forbearing is by practice of forbearance. Basically, it is an exterior act. You're trying to act forbearing. You're not forbearing yet. Because he said, إِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. It's a process. It's a process. You're not really forbearing, but you're acting forbearing until you become forbearing. And here, من حسن الإسلام تركه ما لا يعنيه, it's not about silence. It's about abandonment, shunning, leaving alone. Which means what? Your heart is not interested. Your mind is not. You're not thinking about it. There is no effort here. So I see someone driving like a nice car. So I say to someone else, look at the car that he's driving. Where do you get this from? That is actually, you're so deep into that which does not concern you. You're so deep into the mud that, up to your nose, up to your ears. But does it mean that someone who will stay silent actually reach the station of tarkuhu ma la ya'ni? He's, not concerned. No, he's actually thinking about it. look at this car. Where do they get those cars from? Or look at what he's wearing. So, but then you say to yourself, well, let me just stay silent. You could be staying silent for the sake of Allah. You could be staying silent so that you don't, stir the water and cause trouble. And you could be staying silent for multitudes of reasons. If you stay silent for the sake of Allah, you are a beginner. You just got, your feet wet. You are a beginner because at least you're not acting about your thoughts. But what the Prophet ﷺ said is not really that. What the Prophet ﷺ said is tarkuhu, is leaving alone, shunning, abandonment. It doesn't come across his mind in the first place because he is concerned about something much greater. Can someone who is beholding Allah get distracted by a Mercedes? No. You are so into your business, your survival, your salvation, your najah, your entering paradise, making it there. It is not easy. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةَ. Allah purchased from the believers their souls, their lives, and their property in exchange for paradise. Not easy. So basically, I'm really concerned about just making it there. فحي على ديارنا الأولى فحي على جنات عدن فهي ديارنا الأولى وفيها المخيم. So come on to جنات عدن, in gardens of Eden. فهي ديارنا الأولى. These are our first homes. This is our hometown because we were first created in paradise. Adam was first created in paradise. It's our hometown, and there is the final abode. There is the final abode. So someone who's trying to make the trip back to paradise, beholding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where is he going to have the, mind to think about, who did this or who did what and who said this or who said that, and arguments between friends, or my aunt did this and my father said to her that, and people get so busy with so many things that it's just clutter, distractions. If these are not distractions, at least it's clutter. It is mental clutter. It is spiritual clutter. It is suffocating your spirit, suffocating your spiritual ascendance. You can't. How could you ascend? To the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rise to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you have so much dust, so much clutter around your spirit. Just remove that dust so that your spirit could rise and could join the higher spirits. It could join the role models that we hear about, that we read about in the Sunnah of the Prophet, Sirah of the Prophet, and Sahaba, and the righteous predecessors, and the great Imams, and the followers in righteousness. So just heed the word tarkuhu here. Heed the word tarkuhu. And heed the root cause of this issue, which is كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى. And heed also مَا لَا يَعْنِيكَ, and be sure that مَا لَا يَعْنِيكَ, that which does not concern you, is that which would not help you reach your final destination. That is for a traveler. That is what does not concern the traveler. Whatever is not helping him reach the final destination. Are we not travelers? Where is the gray hair? Are we not travelers? Where are your baby teeth? You lost them. None of you here has the baby teeth. Many of you started to have gray hair. travelers. We're just going through phases where some of us are in the final phase and some of us in the one before the last, and so on. We're travelers. So for a traveler, that which does not concern him should be very easy to figure out. Whatever is not going to help you reach the final destination should not concern you. Finally, when you reach this perfection, this comes with a lot of perks, by the way. To reach that higher station, we all, you're always worried about, or many of us are worried about, you got your silver membership card, and I got my gold. Someone got the platinum membership card, and they came up with a diamond membership card for Delta Airlines. So you're always, you feel so good about, the higher membership card. Because I hold the platinum. And so now, working, you may even go places that you didn't want to go to, just to upgrade yourself from platinum to diamond or something like that. But, reaching the station of Ihsan, it comes with huge perks. That do you think that the muda'afa, the multiplication of hasanat, happens to all of us, on equally, like everybody gets his hasanat multiplied 10 times and that's it? Absolutely not. So the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith is reported by Muslim from Abu Hurayrah, he said, "Man ahsana islamahu kutiba lahu bi kulli hasana ashru amthaliha ila 700 dar." He who perfects his Islam, he will have each of his hasanat multiplied 10 to 700 times. So the scholars said, well, 10 is a given, because that's Allah's promise. 10 is a given, because that's Allah's promise. But what is 10 to 700? They said based on his ranking. Based on his ranking with Allah. His station. Abdullah ibn Umar clearly spelled this out. Abdullah ibn Umar clearly spelled this out. When he said, as Atiyah reports from him, he said, إنما نزلت الحسنة بعشر أمثالها في الأعراب فقيل له فما بال المهاجرين قال الله يضاعف لمن يشاء. So he said that Hasana is multiplied 10 times. This was revealed concerning the Arab, the Bedouins. So they said to him, what about the Muhajirin? And so he said to them, Allah yudha'af ma yasha. Allah multiplies as He wishes for whomever He wishes. Meaning the Muhajirin, this is without reckoning. Those are the people that sacrificed everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will treat them for the hasana they do like He treats the Arab? He gives like a dirham charity, and that gives a dirham charity, and they get rewarded the same? No. That will not be equitable. It may be equal, but it's not equitable. It's not equitable. So, it's basically an invitation to myself and to all of us to really work on beautifying our Islam. Building the structure of your Islam, of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the bottom up, and then beautifying your Islam. It will never be beautiful enough, perfect enough, until you have abandoned, shunned, left alone that which does not concern you, as the Prophet ﷺ said. For one final time, we will repeat the hadith to remember. This hadith is reported by Tirmidhi from Abu Hurayrah radiallahu anhu. He said that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Min husni Islam al-mar tarkuhu ma la ya'ni." It is part of being a good Muslim, or it's part of the beauty of someone's Islam. If we try to be literal, it's part of the beauty of someone's Islam. Tarkuhu is leaving alone, ma la ya'ni, that which does not concern him. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Yes.
Sorry, you mentioned you shouldn't worry about the beautification of the beautification without worrying about the foundation. You mean beautification as far as the diseases of the heart or other type of beautification?
No,
That part of the foundation.
I meant to say, don't act outside of your ranking. Don't put a show. Don't exhibit to the people something which you are not. That is basically the pseudo-beautification. Because true beautification cannot happen without the building being sound and stable. Because how could you beautify without, having a foundation? It would fall, it would collapse. How could you beautify without raising the building itself or, installing the windows and the doors and everything? That comes later. But some people, act outside of their ranking. It is basically a mere act without truth to it. So it is an exhibition of something they do not possess. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mutashabbi'u bima lam yu'ta kalabisi thawbay zur." He who exhibits that which he has not been given is like someone who wears two garments of falsehood. ثوبي زور. كلابسي ثوبي زور. المتشبع بما لم يعطى. He who exhibits that which he does not possess. كلابسي, like someone who wears ثوبي زور, two garments of falsehood. So now, because there is a very fine balance here. This hadith should not be understood to mean that you should not practice that which you do not possess. Because earlier we said, the Prophet ﷺ said, إنما العلم بالتعلم وإنما الحلم بالتحلم ومن يتحرى الخير يعطه ومن يتق الشر يوقه. So, إنما العلم بالتعلم, verily becoming knowledgeable is by learning. وإنما الحلم بالتحلم, and becoming forbearing is by practice of forbearance. ومن يتحرى الخير يعطه, and he who seeks good will be given what he sought. ومن يتق الشر يوقه, and he who avoids evil will be spared of evil. Yuqa will be spared of evil. So, al-mutashabbi'u bima lam yu'ta, the one who exhibits that which he does not possess, is not someone who is practicing for the pleasure of Allah to truly acquire this quality. It's someone who's faking it for the pleasure of the people. So I'm acting patient in front of you, but in reality, if I can slap you on the face, I will, and some people do this. So you act very humble and very nice and so on, because you're dealing with your superiors. You're dealing with, people who are more established than you, stronger, wealthier, in a position of, superiority. So you act so nice and you're so kind, but then, when the first weaker person you encounter, you oppress them and you transgress. And that is mutashabbi' bima lam yu'ta. So when he acts like humble and nice, he is exhibiting that which he does not possess. Or you come in front of the people and show a level of piety, a level of wara that you truly never practice. Such as when the man said to Ahmad ibn Hanbal, "May I use your ink pot?" And Ahmad ibn Hanbal said to him, "Your wara and my wara is not at that level. Don't act it. When you reach there, when you avoid all the haram, then you could tell me, should I use your ink pot?" Because the students amongst themselves, they use each other's ink pot. You brought your own like pencil, and then you use the input of your neighbor without asking, because it used to be like something little that the students would extend to each other. So this man is sitting next to Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and he's like, should I use your input? Oh, yeah. So Ahmad ibn Hanbal told them, we're not there. You are not there. Ahmad ibn Hanbal himself certainly was there, or that is what we believe. But he's telling the man so that he's trying to be gentle with the man. So he's telling him, my wara and your wara is not at that level. So don't ask, just use it. And don't put on a show. So there is a difference between practicing to actually acquire the quality or develop the quality within yourself. So you're walking a certain way to teach yourself to be humble. You're not walking this way to exhibit that which you do not possess. A huge difference. It boils down at the end to what? Your intention. Why are you doing it? So if you're doing it to develop the quality so that you could earn the pleasure of Allah, and you become forbearing, and you earn the pleasure and the love of Allah because He loves forbearance and loves those that are forbearing, and you know that you're not forbearing, but you're trying to force yourself. You say to yourself, well, this time if he says that to me, or if they bother me, or if he bothers me, or if she bothers me, then I'll try to be forbearing. And you boil inside, but you control yourself. You say, well, let me just go through it this time. Let me just go through it. And then you patience yourself. Now you're really practicing. You're not forbearing. Because if you're forbearing, you will not be boiling so much inside. But you're practicing forbearance. Next time it will be easier on you to control your responses, your reactions. And the next time, the following time, it will be even easier, and so on. This person is seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by trying to acquire and develop this good quality of forbearance. But someone who puts on a show or, does this in front of some people because he fears them or because he seeks their pleasure, not Allah's pleasure, is the person that is condemnable. And then beautification, when I say beautification, and I'm saying that part of your min husn Islam al-mar'a tarkuhu ma la ya'ni, it's part of being a good Muslim to leave alone that which does not concern you. And I say that this is the beauty, part of the beautification, perfection of the deen. It does not mean that you don't do this until you get there to the level of beautification. You say to yourself, well, I am now working on the foundation. I'm just trying to work on the foundation. So you meddle in everything that is none of your business, and you intervene and you talk and no. Basically, you should comply with the recommendations and instructions of the Prophet ﷺ across the board. However, you will not reach that station where you truly have no interest in that which does not concern you until the building has been completed and you're now working on the decorations. Mu'arrikh al-Ajli, one of the tabi'een, he actually saw Abdullah ibn Umar and Abdullah ibn Zubayr and Abdullah ibn Abbas, that generation of the Sahaba, of the younger Sahaba. So he was one of the younger tabi'een. But one of the tabi'een anyway, and he was one of the greater tabi'een, Mu'arrikh al-Ajli. He said, one thing I have been seeking for kada wa kada sana, for so many years, and I have not reached it yet. So he asked him, but I will never give up until I reach it. He said, but I will never give up until I reach it. So he asked him, what is it? And he said, كَفِّي عَمَّا لَا يَعْنِينِ, by leaving alone which does not concern me. And I've been working for this so hard for so many years, and I have not reached it yet, but I will never give up until I reach it. Do you think that Mu'arrikh al-Ajli was going around talking about the people and getting into the other people's businesses? Absolutely not. He's talking about this finer phase of this ibadah, which is when your heart has no interest whatsoever in what X, Y, or Z are riding or wearing or where they live. It is not that you're not going to talk about them. It is not that you're not going to say, where did they get this from? Or, why are they wearing that? It is that your heart in the first place did not pay attention to what they are wearing or writing or saying, or it is not paying attention. You have no interest. That is what Muharrak al-Ajli was after. It is not that he was meddling in people's business. Absolutely not. This is a phase, a primary phase for the very beginners. If you don't do this, you will get yourself into haram and so much trouble by talking about the people. This is something that you have to abstain from and refrain from, cut off completely. But we're talking about the final phases of this quality, which is leaving alone that which does not concern you, is when your heart, your mind, not your tongue and your hand, but your heart and mind have left alone, shunned, abandoned that which does not concern them. So the thought did not come across your mind in the first place. Your heart was not concerned or interested in the first place about what he or she has or doesn't have, or did or didn't do, or said or didn't say. Because you are not concerned. Because you are only worried about your own journey and your own goal in this journey. So work on it. Work on it hard. But know that you will not reach the final phases of it, of leaving alone which does not concern you, until you have truly reached which station? كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى, as if you see him. Once you have reached that station, things will fall into place by themselves. Once you have reached the station, you're working on improving your prayer. But you can't have khushu' in the prayer, and you get distracted in your prayer. You're working on leaving alone that which does not concern you, but you still have those thoughts in your mind. And even though you stay silent and don't talk, even you don't talk to your wife, and then you don't talk to yourself, basically by cutting off the thoughts, but the thoughts are coming. And you're working on, being more charitable and generous, and you're working on this. So you're working on multitudes of fronts, but you're finding a lot of challenges in each and every one of them. You still feel a little bit stingy. You still feel a little bit distracted in the prayer. You still feel a little bit of keenness for the dunya and competition and so on. Keep working on all the fronts until you have reached that station of كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى, as if you see him. And once you have reached that station, you will see. Everything will fall into place. The salah will be much more focused. There will be much less distraction. There will be much less concern about that which does not concern you. Like someone who was told that you have 3 months to live. Do you think they told the person who knows that there is Jannah and Nar and so on. So they told him, you'll have 3 months to live. Do you think that person will be so concerned about, how he will look and, what people will say about him and, try to show off? Absolutely not. كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى is even greater than the one who was told you have 3 months. كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى. Because he's beholding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his perception. It is not about 3 months, he's already there. كَأَنَّكَ تَرَى. So he will be more focused than the one who was given 3 months to live. شهد الله أن استغفرك وأتوب إليك.